The dacha, nestled among the whispering pines, had always been a place of solace for Harold. But in the twilight of his life, it felt more like a gilded cage. The windows, once gateways to the soul-stirring beauty of nature, now framed a reminder of his isolation. The ticking of the clock in the otherwise silent living room marked the passing of another day in retirement, a concept he once greeted with open arms, only to find it a hollow companion. Max, his faithful companion of many years, lay sprawled beside him, his deep breaths the only other sound breaking the silence. The aging dog had been his shadow, a constant presence through the highs and lows of life. Now, as Harold gazed at him, a pang of worry gnawed at his heart. Max's needs were simple, yet the financial burden of veterinary care and proper nutrition weighed heavily on Harold. "I don't know what I'm going to do, Max," Harold spoke aloud, as if expecting an answer. The dog merely shifted, letting out a soft groan, his tail thumping gently on the floor in response. The decision to give his apartment to his daughter Pamela had been an easy one at the time. She was unmarried, struggling with her career, and in need of stability. He had the dacha, after all. But that decision now haunted him as he faced his dwindling savings with no plan in sight. One morning, as Harold sat at his kitchen table, flipping through the classifieds with a cup of coffee cooling beside him, a particular ad caught his eye. Wanted, a grandfather figure for a young boy with special needs. Must be compassionate, patient, and willing to share in both laughter and tears. Generous compensation provided. Harold's first instinct was to scoff. A grandfather for hire? What has the world come to? Yet, as he read and reread the ad, something within him stirred. Could this be the solution he was so desperately seeking? Not just for his financial woes, but also for the creeping sense of purposelessness that had enveloped him? With a mixture of skepticism and curiosity, Harold picked up the phone and dialed the number listed. A soft, warm voice answered after a few rings. "Hello, Vivian speaking." "Ah, yes, good morning. My name is Harold. I'm calling about the ad for a grandfather," Harold said, the words feeling strange in his mouth. Vivian chuckled lightly. "Yes, I understand it's a bit unconventional. Do you have experience with children? Specifically, children with disabilities?" Harold paused, memories of his years as a schoolteacher flooding back. "Yes, I do. I taught for over 30 years. And while I haven't specifically worked with children with disabilities, I believe I can be of help." "That's wonderful to hear," Vivian's voice brightened. "Can you tell me a little about yourself? Why did this ad speak to you?" Harold found himself opening up about his current situation, his retirement, and the longing for purpose that had led him to make the call. As he spoke, he realized how much he missed being needed, being part of something larger than himself. "Well, Harold, it sounds like you might be just who we're looking for. How about we meet for coffee? I can tell you more about my son, Eli, and we can see if this might be a good fit for both of you." Harold agreed, the conversation ending with plans to meet the following day. As he hung up the phone, a flicker of hope ignited within him. Turning to Max, who had been his silent audience, Harold smiled. "Looks like we might have a new adventure ahead of us, old friend." Max's tail wagged in response, as if in approval, and for the first time in a long while, Harold felt a spark of excitement for the future. The coffee shop where Harold was to meet Vivian was a quaint little place with a cozy ambience that immediately put him at ease. He arrived early, taking a seat at a table near the window. Harold watched the world go by outside, his mind swirling with thoughts of what was to come. Max, having been left at home, seemed to sense his departure was for a good cause, offering a low whine and nuzzle before Harold stepped out the door. Vivian entered the coffee shop with an air of quiet confidence, scanning the room until her eyes settled on Harold. She approached with a smile, extending her hand in greeting. "Harold? I'm Vivian. Thank you for meeting me." "Of course, it's my pleasure," Harold replied, standing to shake her hand. They settled into their seats, and Vivian wasted no time diving into the heart of the matter. "I'll start by telling you a bit about Eli," she began, her tone mixing pride and a touch of worry. "He's 10 years old and quite the character. Loves puzzles, animals, and anything to do with outer space. But, as I mentioned on the phone, he's faced more challenges than most kids his age." Vivian paused, her eyes reflecting a deep, maternal concern. "Eli uses a wheelchair. He was in an accident a few years ago, and it's been a long road of recovery. He's made incredible progress, but there are still hurdles, both physical and emotional." Harold listened intently, nodding in understanding. "I can only imagine how tough it must be for him, and for you as well." "It has been, but Eli is stronger than I ever imagined. That's actually why I placed the ad," Vivian continued. "He's at a point where I believe having a male role model, someone who can spend quality time with him, share experiences, and maybe teach him things that I can't, would be incredibly beneficial." "And you thought of me for this role?" Harold asked, the weight of the responsibility beginning to dawn on him. "Yes, I did," Vivian affirmed. "From what you've told me and the way you speak, I sense a kindness and patience that's essential for this. Plus, your teaching background gives you an understanding of children that's hard to come by." Harold took a moment to process her words. The idea of stepping into such a unique role was daunting, yet the thought of making a difference in Eli's life stirred something within him. "I won't lie, Vivian. I'm honored you'd consider me, but I'm also a bit nervous. It's been a while since I've been in a teaching or mentoring role, especially under such circumstances." Vivian smiled, a warmth in her eyes that eased Harold's apprehension. "That's perfectly understandable, Harold. And I wouldn't expect you to decide right away. How about you meet Eli? See how you two get along. No pressure." "That sounds fair," Harold agreed, feeling a mix of excitement and nervousness at the prospect. "Great. How about this Saturday? We could meet at the park. Eli loves it there, and it might be a more relaxed setting for you both." "Saturday works for me," Harold confirmed, a sense of commitment solidifying within him. As they parted ways, Harold felt a renewed sense of purpose beginning to take root. He knew the road ahead with Eli might be challenging, but the opportunity to impact the boy's life positively was a chance worth taking. Walking back to his car, Harold couldn't help but think about Max and Eli meeting. The thought brought a smile to his face, imagining the joy such a meeting could bring to both the boy and his loyal dog. Saturday arrived with a gentle warmth and a clear sky, a perfect day for Harold's first meeting with Eli at the local park. The morning had been spent in a flurry of anticipation, with Harold making sure everything was just right for their introduction. He had even given Max an extra brushing, knowing the dog would be as much a part of this new journey as he was. Vivian and Eli were already at the park when Harold arrived, near the playground where laughter and the sound of children playing filled the air. Eli, spotting Max first, lit up with excitement. "Mom, look. Is that Max?" Vivian, who had been watching their approach, smiled warmly at Harold. Yes, it is, Eli. And that's Harold. Let's go say hello. As they made their way over, Harold felt a flutter of nerves. Max, sensing new friends, wagged his tail eagerly. Hello, Eli, Vivian, Harold greeted them, bending slightly to be at eye level with Eli. It's wonderful to meet you both. And this here is Max. He's been looking forward to meeting you too. Eli's eyes sparkled with curiosity and joy as he reached out a hand to Max, who nuzzled it gently in greeting. Hi, Max. I'm Eli. I've never had a dog friend before. Max's friendly acceptance seemed to break the ice, and any initial awkwardness melted away as they all shared a laugh at Max's enthusiastic greeting. Vivian watched the interaction with a smile, then turned to Harold. Eli's been talking about this meeting all week. I think he's more excited about Max than anything else. Eli, emboldened by Max's gentle demeanor, turned his attention to Harold. Do you think Max would like to see my puzzle collection? I have one with a picture of the solar system. I'm sure he would, Eli. And I'd love to see it too, Harold replied, delighted by Eli's warmth and openness. The conversation flowed naturally from there, with Eli eagerly sharing his interests and Harold listening intently, offering words of encouragement and sharing a few stories of his own. Vivian watched as a genuine connection formed between the two, a mix of relief and happiness evident in her expression. After some time, Harold suggested a short walk around the park, allowing Eli to lead the way in his wheelchair with Max trotting alongside. Vivian walked with them, and the group enjoyed a peaceful stroll, with Harold and Eli chatting about everything from their favorite movies to the constellations in the night sky. As the meeting came to a close, Harold felt a sense of fulfillment he hadn't experienced in a long time. Turning to Vivian, he said, "Thank you for this opportunity, Vivian. I think Eli and I are going to get along just fine." Vivian's eyes shone with gratitude. "Thank you, Harold. Seeing Eli so happy and engaged, it means the world to me." Eli, not wanting the day to end, looked up at Harold with a hopeful gaze. "Will you come visit again, Harold? Maybe you can teach me and Max some new games?" Harold smiled, warmth spreading through his heart. "I'd like that very much, Eli. We'll have lots of adventures, you, me, and Max." As they parted ways, Harold felt a renewed sense of purpose and connection. The loneliness that had shadowed his days seemed to lift, replaced by the anticipation of the days to come. Walking back to his car with Max by his side, Harold knew this was the beginning of something special, not just for Eli, but for him as well. In the weeks that followed their first meeting, Harold, Eli, and Max became inseparable companions. Their bond deepened with each visit, their time together filled with laughter, learning, and the kind of silent understanding that speaks volumes. Vivian watched this relationship blossom with gratitude, her heart full at the sight of her son's newfound happiness. One sunny afternoon, Harold decided it was the perfect day to introduce Eli to the wonders of his dacha. The sprawling green space, the calmness of the surrounding nature, and the simple joys of being outdoors promised a new adventure for Eli. As they arrived, Eli's eyes widened in wonder. "It's beautiful here, Harold." "And it's so big," he exclaimed, his voice a mixture of excitement and awe. Harold chuckled, pleased with Eli's reaction. "I'm glad you like it, Eli. I thought we could do something special today. How about we try some painting outdoors? The landscape here could inspire some great artwork." Eli's face lit up at the suggestion. "Yes, please. I've never painted outside before." Vivian, who had accompanied them, set up a small, portable table and chairs, making sure Eli was comfortable and had everything he needed. Harold had brought along watercolors, brushes, and paper, laying them out for Eli to choose from. As Eli began to paint, Max lay down beside him, occasionally lifting his head to watch the boy's progress. Harold took up his brush as well, painting alongside Eli in companionable silence, the peaceful surroundings enhancing their creative flow. "Harold, what should I paint?" Eli asked, looking around for inspiration. "Why not start with what you feel? The trees, the sky, Max here, or anything that catches your eye," Harold suggested, encouraging Eli to express himself freely. Eli nodded thoughtfully, dipping his brush into the blue paint before making broad strokes on the paper, capturing the vastness of the sky. Harold watched, a smile on his lips, as Eli's painting took shape, a mix of the scenery around them and the boy's imagination. Vivian, watching from a distance, couldn't help but feel a surge of emotion. This simple moment, so full of joy and creativity, was something she had longed to see for Eli. As the afternoon waned, Eli held up his painting with a proud grin. "I did it. It's the sky, the trees, and there's Max." Harold admired Eli's work, genuine praise in his voice. "Eli, that's wonderful. You've captured the spirit of this place perfectly." "And I think Max agrees," he said, as the dog wagged his tail in approval. They decided to display Eli's painting in the dacha, giving it a place of honor on the wall. Eli's face beamed with pride, the significance of the moment not lost on him. As they packed up to leave, Eli turned to Harold, his voice earnest. "Thank you, Harold. Today was one of the best days ever." Harold knelt beside Eli, placing a hand on the boy's shoulder. "Thank you, Eli. You've made it a special day for me too. There will be many more days like this, I promise." Vivian joined them, her heart full. "Harold, I can't thank you enough for what you're doing for Eli. You're not just teaching him new things, you're giving him experiences that he'll remember forever." As they drove away from the dacha, the sun setting behind them, Harold felt a profound sense of contentment. He had found not just a purpose but a family in Vivian and Eli. And in the rearview mirror, he caught a glimpse of Eli's smiling face, a reminder of the joy and fulfillment that awaited them all in the days to come. As autumn painted the world in hues of orange and gold, Harold, Eli, and Max continued their explorations of the dacha and its surroundings. Each visit became an adventure, a chance to discover something new, not just about the world around them, but about each other as well. The bond between Harold and Eli had grown into something deeply special, a mutual understanding and respect that transcended age and experience. One crisp morning, as they sat on the porch wrapped in warm blankets, Harold decided it was the right time to delve a bit deeper, to touch upon the unseen wounds they both carried. "Eli, have you ever felt like talking about the accident?" Harold ventured gently, careful not to push too hard. Eli, who had been watching a leaf flutter to the ground, looked up, his expression thoughtful. "Sometimes. I think about it a lot. But I don't like to talk about it much. It makes me feel broken." Harold nodded, understanding the weight of those feelings all too well. "I know what you mean. After my wife passed away, I felt broken too. Like I was a puzzle missing pieces." Eli turned to Harold, his curiosity piqued. "What did you do to feel better?" "Well, I talked about her. At first, it was hard, like reopening a wound. But with time, it helped me remember the good times, not just the pain. And spending time here, with you and Max, has helped heal some of those pieces," Harold shared, hoping his words would offer some comfort. Eli mulled this over, then said, "Maybe I could try talking about it more." "With you?" "Anytime you want, Eli." "I'm here to listen," Harold assured him, a promise in his eyes. The conversation shifted to lighter topics, but the door had been opened, a pathway to healing revealed. Over the following weeks, Eli began to share more about his feelings and fears related to the accident. Harold listened, offered support, and shared his own vulnerabilities, making it clear that it was okay to not be okay. One afternoon, as they were raking leaves into enormous piles, Eli stopped, leaning on his rake. "Harold, do you ever get mad at what happened?" "I get mad a lot." Harold, pausing in his work, considered the question. "Yes, I do. It's natural to feel angry about the things we can't control. But I've learned that it's what we do with that anger that matters. We can let it consume us, or we can try to find a way to move forward, to find moments of happiness despite it." Eli nodded, taking in Harold's words. "I want to try to find happiness, like we do here." "And we will, Eli." "Together," Harold said, a gentle determination in his voice. Their conversations, once a tentative exploration of pain, had become a bridge to understanding and healing. Eli's confidence grew, not just in his ability to navigate his emotions, but also in his physical capabilities. With Harold's encouragement, he began to push himself more during their physical activities, his resilience shining through. Vivian, witnessing the transformation in her son, couldn't help but feel a profound sense of gratitude towards Harold. One evening, as they sat down to a meal together at the dacha, she voiced her feelings. "Harold, I don't know how to thank you enough. He's blossoming. You've done so much more than I could have ever hoped for." Harold, looking across at Eli, who was laughing at something Max was doing, felt a swell of pride. "Vivian, being part of Eli's journey is a gift. He's teaching me just as much as I'm teaching him." As they shared their meal, the warmth of family enveloping them, it was clear that the healing of unseen wounds was a journey they were all taking together. And in the safety of their shared experiences, hope and love had found fertile ground to grow. As the leaves continued their descent, heralding the deeper embrace of autumn, Harold, Eli, and Max had established a routine filled with laughter, learning, and an unspoken understanding. Their bond, now unbreakable, had become a source of strength for each of them. However, life, with its penchant for the unpredictable, was about to test the foundations of their newly formed family. It was a chilly afternoon, one that promised the swift arrival of winter, when Harold experienced a sudden and sharp pain in his chest. He was in the backyard with Eli, who was practicing maneuvering his wheelchair through a makeshift obstacle course they had designed together. Harold tried to disguise his discomfort, attributing it to the cold or perhaps a minor strain, but the pain intensified, a vice tightening around his heart. Eli, ever observant, noticed the change in Harold's demeanor immediately. "Harold, are you okay? You look pale," he said, his voice laced with concern. Trying to maintain a semblance of normalcy, Harold attempted to brush off his concern. "I'm fine, Eli. Just a bit winded, that's all. Maybe we should head inside." As they made their way into the house, Harold's legs began to feel like lead, each step heavier than the last. By the time they reached the living room, Harold knew he couldn't deny the severity of his situation. He sank into a chair, his breath shallow and labored. Eli, panic rising, wheeled himself closer. "Harold, you're not fine." "I'm calling Mom," he said, his voice steady despite the fear evident in his eyes. Vivian, upon receiving Eli's frantic call, arrived in record time, her face etched with worry. Assessing the situation quickly, she dialed for an ambulance, her actions calm and collected, a stark contrast to the turmoil she felt inside. As they waited for the ambulance, Eli stayed by Harold's side, holding his hand. "You're going to be okay, Harold. You have to be," he whispered, a plea wrapped in the innocence of youth. Harold, despite the pain, squeezed Eli's hand gently, a silent promise that he wasn't giving up. "I'm a tough old bird, Eli. It'll take more than this to keep me down," he managed to say, attempting a reassuring smile. The ambulance arrived, and as the paramedics took over, Harold was loaded onto a stretcher, his condition stable but serious. Vivian followed the ambulance to the hospital, leaving Eli with a neighbor and promising to keep him updated. The hours that followed were a blur of waiting, worrying, and hoping. Eli, unable to sit still, found himself pacing, Max following his every move, a silent guardian in a time of uncertainty. Vivian, after what felt like an eternity, called with news. Harold had suffered a heart attack but was stable and receiving the best care possible. Relief washed over Eli, tears of gratitude and fear mingling as he processed the news. Days passed, and Harold's condition improved steadily. Eli insisted on visiting him as soon as it was permitted, Vivian supporting her son's wish. When they finally saw Harold, resting but with a smile ready for his young friend, the emotional reunion was a testament to the deep bond they shared. "Harold, you scared us," Eli said, trying to sound stern but failing to hide his relief. Harold, his voice still weak but filled with warmth, replied, "I scared myself too, Eli. But I had a good reason to fight. I couldn't leave my two best friends wondering about our next adventure." Their visit was a mix of laughter and tears, a celebration of Harold's resilience and the collective strength of their bond. As they left the hospital that day, Eli, looking up at his mother, said, "Harold's going to be okay, isn't he?" Vivian, squeezing her son's hand, replied with certainty, "Yes, he is. And when he's back, we'll have even more adventures. Just you wait and see." The scare had reminded them all of the fragility of life, but also of the incredible strength found in the love and support of family, no matter how unconventional its formation. The weeks following Harold's hospitalization were a time of reflection and re-evaluation for everyone. Harold's brush with mortality had shaken them, but it also reinforced the importance of their connections and the time they had together. As Harold recovered, his resilience and determination became a beacon of hope for Eli, who saw in Harold not just a mentor and friend, but a symbol of the indomitable human spirit. Harold, now back at the dacha and regaining his strength, was eager to resume his activities with Eli and Max. However, he recognized the need for caution, understanding that his health had to be a priority. During his recovery, Harold had a lot of time to think about how he could continue to support Eli's development, especially in fostering the boy's independence and confidence. Eli visited Harold as often as Vivian would allow, his concern for Harold evident in his every action. Yet, there was an unspoken understanding between them that life must go on, that they had to keep pushing forward, embracing each day with gratitude and courage. One afternoon, as the autumn leaves gave way to the first hints of winter, Harold and Eli found themselves discussing the future. "Eli, you've shown such incredible strength and resilience, much like someone else I know," Harold began, his voice tinged with emotion. "I've been thinking about what else we can do together, something that challenges us both." Eli looked up, curiosity alight in his eyes. "What do you have in mind?" Harold took a deep breath, the idea he was about to propose both exciting and daunting. I was thinking about us taking a little trip. Just down to the lake. It's not far, but it's something we haven't done together. What do you think? Eli's face lit up with excitement, the prospect of an adventure sparking his adventurous spirit. Really? That sounds amazing, Harold. But do you think I can do it? With the wheelchair and everything? Harold smiled, his confidence in Eli unwavering. I have no doubt, Eli. We'll take it slow, and we'll do it together. It'll be our little expedition. The day of the trip arrived, cold but clear, with a hint of adventure in the air. They made their way slowly, Harold mindful of his health, and Eli of the rough terrain. The journey, though challenging, was filled with laughter and encouragement, each step forward a testament to their determination. As they reached the lake, the beauty of the scene before them took their breath away. The water was a mirror, reflecting the crisp sky and the last of the autumn leaves clinging to the trees. They sat in silence, taking in the tranquility and the significance of the moment. Eli, do you remember when we first met, and you asked me if I believed in adventures? Harold asked, his voice soft. Eli nodded, a smile spreading across his face. I remember. You said life was full of them. That's right. And do you see now? Our biggest adventures are the ones we find in the challenges we overcome together, Harold said, his gaze meeting Eli's. Eli's response was thoughtful, his maturity beyond his years. I see it now, Harold. This, us, our friendship, it's the greatest adventure I could have ever hoped for. As they made their way back, something miraculous happened. Eli, with a determination that caught Harold off guard, stood up from his wheelchair, taking shaky but purposeful steps with Harold's and Max's support. Harold, tears in his eyes, watched in awe as Eli, step by step, made his way forward. Eli, you're doing it. You're walking. Eli, pausing to steady himself, looked up with a mix of pride and disbelief. I am, aren't I? I didn't know if I could, but I wanted to try. For you, for me. That day, the journey back from the lake was more than just a physical return, it was a symbolic march towards hope, resilience, and the boundless potential within each of them. The step into the unknown had revealed not just the beauty of the world around them, but the strength and courage that lay within. In the wake of their expedition to the lake and Eli's monumental steps, the atmosphere around the dacha, and within each of their hearts, had transformed. The triumph over physical and emotional barriers had not only drawn Harold, Eli, and Max closer but also imbued them with a renewed sense of purpose and possibility. As winter wrapped its cold arms around the world, bringing with it the promise of renewal, Harold found himself reflecting on the journey they had all undertaken. The quiet of the dacha, once a place of solitude, now resonated with the echoes of laughter, conversations, and the patter of footsteps, some on 4 legs, some on 2, and some supported by the strength of friendship. One evening, as they sat by the fireplace, the warmth chasing away the chill from their bones, Eli turned to Harold, a thoughtful expression on his face. Harold, do you think every person has a path they're supposed to follow? Like destiny? Harold, considering the question, watched the flames dance and flicker. I believe we make our paths, Eli. Destiny might guide us, but it's our choices, our actions, and the people we meet that shape our journey. Eli nodded, absorbing the wisdom in Harold's words. I think meeting you and Max was part of my path. You helped me see that there's so much more I can do, even when things seem hard. Harold smiled, the warmth in his heart matching that of the fire. And you, Eli, have shown me the strength of the human spirit. You've reminded me that no matter our age or our challenges, we can always find new adventures, new paths to explore. Vivian, who had quietly entered the room, added, and together, you've built bridges. Bridges of understanding, of hope, and of love. You've shown that family isn't just about blood, it's about the connections we choose to make and nurture. The room fell into a comfortable silence, each lost in their thoughts, reflecting on the bridges they had built, not just between themselves, but within their own hearts. The challenges they had faced, the obstacles they had overcome, and the steps they had taken, both literal and metaphorical, had woven a tapestry of experiences that would forever bind them. As the fire began to dwindle, Harold spoke, his voice soft but clear. Our journey together has been one of the most meaningful chapters of my life. Eli, you've taught me as much as I hope I've taught you. And Vivian, your strength and love have been the foundation upon which we've built this extraordinary family. Eli, moved by Harold's words, reached out, taking Harold's hand in his. I don't know what the future holds, but I know that with you and Max, and my mom, I'm ready for it. We're ready for it. Vivian knelt beside them, enveloping their hands with hers, a symbol of their united front against whatever may come. Together, there's nothing we can't face.